Hey, Eli here. Today I'm going to give you my review on the Canon R6 II. Been working on this one for a while. I've got 22,000 clicks with it. I have about 400,000 clicks with the original R6s, and so those were my favorite cameras back in 2021 into 2022. And yeah, I used the R3 and I decided that camera was too big for me, so I picked up this camera, and I think this is going to be my camera of the year for weddings. I'll also have an R5, but I'll probably use two of these for primarily most of my work at weddings and portraits, especially anything with kids. This autofocus system is amazing. So today I'm going to go over image quality, autofocus, high ISO, and just handling and how it's different and why I like it a little more than the R5. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about the handling. Feels great in my hand, just like any other Canon camera that I've used. The mirrorless, they've been great. I do like this new on-off button over here on the side. It really helps me turn everything on, work with one hand. Yeah, a lot easier. Has thrown me for a little bit of a loop with the now video button on this side versus the Canon R5 and R6 originals. This was the power button. So what I do is I tape it off. Working just for now, since I'm using both systems. A little piece of tape, no problem, fixed it. But I do appreciate that, change. It's just going to take me a little while to get used to it. And then this little piece of tape here is covering the menu dial or the dial for aperture priority and all that. I only shoot on manual, and there's no way to lock that. Got a lot of comments on my video I put up, kind of, a little bit of a joke where I put tape over it, called it a hack. And yeah, this can't be locked through this lock button here. This you'll see later in my video. I'll show you what that lock button does for you. And then yeah, the thumb dial is a little different, or the thumb selector, the joystick, hasn't bothered me. Yeah, I think I preferred the older one, but this one doesn't bother me at all. Still feels great. Not much else has changed that I can think of right off the bat. Maybe it'll come to me later in the video. But yeah, right now, I think it's great. It's awesome. Feels very natural. And I like when my thumb rests on this joystick. Some other manufacturers, it doesn't happen, and this just is great. It's intuitive. I use these two buttons right here simultaneously, and it's no problem. But yeah, love the handling. Next up would be high ISO. It's awesome. Go watch I have a image quality and high ISO test. I'll put the link in the description. It's against the R5, and I compare it in print to see what it actually looks like when you print it, because we're looking at pixels all day long. Monitors are different. You never know, how it's going to look. So once you print it, that's going to tell you what your client's going to see when they print their images. So other points of interest for me on this was, yeah, image quality is awesome. I think 24 megapixels is plenty. 20 was plenty for me for my work. High ISO, you can't get any better than this, in my opinion, for cameras that I've used. Autofocus system and speed is awesome. I'm going to show you some tests and then handling. So yeah, the end of this video is going to be the most boring part of the video, and I'm going to go through the whole menu of what I've changed in this camera and how I use it for weddings and portraits. So yeah, let's get off the bat. We'll jump straight into, I'm going to jump into the video where I talk about the autofocus system, the difference between the R5 and the R6, and why it's taken me a little while to get used to this system, but I figured out a way in the menu to make that work. So I'm going to cut to that video, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, here is why I prefer the Canon R6 II over the Canon R5. There's a few reasons. Number one is this new power button that they moved. Number two is the on and off time, how fast this camera starts compared to this camera. I find it to be about 3 times faster. And then the focus system. Took me a little while to warm up to the R6 II focus system, which was the same, what I can tell, as the R3, which was a little jumpy and gave me less control. It was very accurate and it tracks really well, but I like to know where my focus point's going to be. I photograph weddings and portraits, and yeah, so we'll jump into right away. Power button, moving this power button is a huge win. This still being here is the movie button. I have to tape it over to train my brain that, that is not the power button. Now I'm turning video on and off all day. So I put a piece of tape over it. It's great. Cool. Startup times, we'll just go through a quick test here. And one thing to note is this camera, the R5, will start up just as fast, but it will not give you a focus point indicator. So for about 3 seconds. So watch for that. Ready, 1, 2, and 3. Watching for that focus point to show up. And ready, 1, 2, 3. These are set to clean the sensor when you turn them off, and the shutter is opening and closing. And The reason this is significant is because I'm turning these off on and off all day long at a wedding. I want to conserve my battery because these aren't SLRs, they're EVFs or mirrorless, and so they're going to drain your battery a lot faster. And I'm capturing moments all day, so something happens, on, ready to rock. And so we want to see what happens if we turn these on and hold the shutter button down. So we'll start with the R5. It will start taking photos right away, but you just don't know what you're taking photos of. So ready, hold the shutter, 1, 2, 3, and there's that focus point. If you're in a hurry or a pinch, you can throw a Hail Mary and hold the eye autofocus button down, and it will grab a face, but you won't know until your focus point shows up. And over here, we're going to turn it on. Right away, we've got our focus point. It's ready to rock. Cool. So startup time, power button, and number 3 is the autofocus system. So this autofocus system is amazing, does great. This one is more amazing, and it's awesome. So if you're shooting sports or anything moving, this camera is for you. It will track way better. The problem I had with it initially was when I set on people detect, over here, subject detect, it is just going to grab any face anywhere. So if I'm trying to take a picture of like someone's hand or a ring, it happens at weddings a lot, or any details, flowers, boutonniere, it's just going to go to the face, and it was driving me nuts. So I was like, what is going on here? How do I control this? So I found that if I go in here, if I go to none, detect, so now I have control. It will focus where I want to focus, and then if I want to focus on a face, I just hold down my eye autofocus button, which I've set to AF on, and boom, ready to rock. So now I can move my focus point around if I need to, or I can just grab and track whatever I want, right? So I turn this back on if I'm photographing my daughter playing sports, or just anything with people that I'm just going to do portraits. Then it's a quick, it'll jump straight to the face, and that's great. Also note that pretty much all of these are tracking now, so these will all track. Where if you go over here, you're going to have the same problem only on the first focus point, which is the face detect, right? And you can eliminate that problem if you want right here. You can just go to none. But what I liked about this camera was it gave me more control. If I'm going to focus where I want, I just move this around, it'll focus there. If I hold down eye, it'll get that. But these don't track. So it is nice to have tracking and the option to do eye. So there's that. And then, yeah, the last thing that I should note too is a lot of people in my little short video of this camera said, why do I tape this up when I can lock it here? Well, this does not lock this. Okay, so this only locks. I'll show you. Go over here to, where's it at? Multifunction lock. Multifunction lock will only lock your screen and all your dials. So one thing to note too is if you do lock your screen, which I did this in the past on the older cameras, so you can hit the Q button if you have a lock screen, and even if you hit the Q button and you've locked your screen off, so I don't use touchscreen at all, you can accidentally bump all of your, I'll show you, you can accidentally bump your quality settings. And I've done this where I've shot a wedding in all JPEG and not JPEG RAW because I bumped that. So I turn off my touchscreen completely. I'm only showing here for examples, or for a video, I'll turn it back on. But yeah, just to note, this lock button will only lock your dials, not this dial. So your front, your back, your rear dial, and then your lens dial. So yeah, something to note. And I mean, these cameras are both amazing. You can't go wrong with either one. They're both going to be great. But I think it's good to stay consistent if you're going to be photographing a wedding all day. It's nice to have the two of the same camera. You don't have to think about which camera to use. And then, the ergonomics have shifted now, so they're a little bit different. So that's where the tape comes in handy. And I use that to keep my brain on the power button over here. So, okay. So yeah, that was just, the difference between the cameras and why I like this camera more now. I used to prefer, and in some cases I kind of still, the R5 just is a little simpler for portraits. I don't have to think too much. I know what it's going to do. It does have its limitations, but it does what it needs to do for me. For commercial work, I may use that as well. I also have the GFX 100S, so if I need resolution, I have it. But I still think this is plenty for resolution. All right, now I'm going to jump into my computer and I'm going to show you some autofocus tests I did. The true test of any autofocus system is a child. Kids don't sit still. My daughter's a pretty well-behaved kid, but still, when it comes to photos, she's over it. She's been over it since she was like 3. So she's 5 now, and I had to bribe her with a lot of candy, but I took her out frog hunting up in the mountains, and yeah, she had a blast. But I just want to show you, I'll go through right now this video where we took her out and we tested the autofocus system up in the mountains. So I'm going to start out with this video. Just going to walk you through it. I used the 105. I wanted to shoot at 1.4 as much as possible. I've got the adapter with the ring, aperture ring. I appreciate that one versus the other without it. I used the 105 from Sigma 1.4. Wanted to keep that at low apertures if possible. And I used the 35 version 2. These are both EF lenses adapted. So I figured also the 1.2 with Canon, I use that. So lower the aperture, the harder it would be to focus, and the more critical the focus would be. So I figured it'd be a good test. I did use the 7200 at home just to, you know, to mess around, but these are the ones I did the tests with, and so we'll look at those right now. If I can remember which lens it was, I think, oh yeah, here we go. So this is the 105, and we've got her running away, and I'm using a mix of just focus point and eye. If you see the little box around the eye or the head, that is, I'm pressing the eye button. So if it can't get the eye, it'll grab the body, which is great. She's running back and forth pretty fast, and a lot of these are in focus. I could have also photographed at 12 frames a second and got more keepers, but a lot of these were in focus. And then here, we've got 35 millimeter. Just testing this out. She's eating gummies. Awesome. Tracking her eyes, no problem. These are easy. You know, she's not moving. So pretty basic. She turns her head, still grabs her head. Again, she's walking away. It's grabbing her head. That's great. Working really well. Grab the body. Yeah, this is just, I mean, this focus system is pretty advanced. And it's, I mean, you always say, I don't need it to be any better, but when they make it better, you're like, wow, I'll take that. Tracking her eyes as she's walking. All right, here we are in the backyard. She's running. This is the 105. Just being a little crazy kid. And here I'm tracking with just the focus points. And then I switch to face. Right as she gets closer, there's a point at which it doesn't want to grab the head or the body or the face when she's too far away. But you'll learn your lenses and when, at what point you can just go and default to the face. So here it wasn't grabbing her face, and then right about there, picked her up, tracked her all the way to minimum focus. And then here I'm using the 50 millimeter at 1.2. She's climbing up here. It's tracking her eyes. And then I had her poke her head out and just press the eye autofocus, and boom, there she is. And then going down the slide, tracking her face the whole time. 1.2. Through the trees, lost her, and then pick her up again. And then we get her just bouncing on the trampoline. Tracking her face through here. Yep. Pretty darn good. Yeah, it's, I don't know what more I could ask for. I've used Sony's, like AI, gosh, what is it? The A7R5, and it's really good too. I don't see a significant difference between the two. I do have more time with this camera, so I'm learning its limitations, and it's very, you know, there's very few limitations, but you just got to know at what point that lens is going to grab the face, and you're going to, you know, be able to rely on it. Coming down an aisle should be no problem. But yeah, so enough about that. I just want to go through now just a few images and kind of show you what I captured with my daughter, and then just some work. I've had this camera since, I think, the beginning of the year. I got it in January, and photographed a decent amount of weddings as like a secondary camera. And then I photographed an elopement with just 2 R6s and loved it. It was awesome. It's nice to just have the same camera ergonomically, where the R5 still messes with my head when I turn it on and off, but the tape helps. So gaff tape, I've got it everywhere, hide it everywhere. I like wrap it around crowns and do like a little bundles of it and just stash it places because I'll use it all the time. So cool. All right, we're gonna run through a few of these images of my daughter. Let's see, we'll start at the beginning with her up here. This was the 105, and nice and sharp, nail in focus. Portrait's no problem. This is where she starts running at me. Just picking her up. Nice and sharp at 1.4. This is just a landscape photo. I took at 2.5. You can see nice and sharp, lots of detail. That 35mm photo from the log, 1.4, plenty sharp. I love the way the skin renders on these images. I use neutral, yeah, for all of my editing for Canon, and I'll just show you what that looks like in Adobe. Adobe just doesn't have the same look. Yeah, it's different. Neutral and portrait are great. I like neutral. It's just, it softens the skin, kind of makes the tones a little prettier in my opinion. So all of these you're going to see are my preset edited with neutral. So I'm just going to run through a few of these. I mean, those eyes are sharp. Color is great. And this one here, I just want to show you the capability of the dynamic range of this camera. So we're going to go in and we're going to just bring up the shadows really fast and just show you, like under the hat here, they're not losing any detail. The grain is, there's no grain. You know, I mean, it's holding up. You know, if we look at that original image, let's reset this, it's really dark. So a lot of detail in there. And then you can also go through, and I'm creating presets at the moment where we can brighten the subject, darken the background, and then we can kind of balance this how much image out if we want. We want to keep it looking natural, but we can play with it and, you know, have some fun with it. So darken that background a little, balance this out. So, a lot of capability. Her running at me, we grabbed her. You know, these are all going to be kind of lens dependent, but they're all fast. Here I was just trying to get pictures of the frog she caught, and I just used the focus point and it nailed it. I was really impressed. I did for fun try the animal eye autofocus, and when I got really close, it did grab the eyes, but it was really rare because the frog is so small. And then I also noticed when I went to animal focus, it didn't want to grab my daughter's face. So yeah, that was interesting. So I guess maybe auto, if you do want to use that feature and you don't know what you're going to photograph, but the detail on this frog at 1.4, pretty amazing. Like I said, it's so small to get that detail. Little guy. He's a little out of focus there, but yeah, she let him go right after we left. And then just here I was out photographing some products that our friends gave us from a company called Little Howdy. They're out of Texas. Check them out. And yeah, just tracking the boots, no problem. I mean, the focus is so fast that I generally just leave it in the middle and I track. All right. And then here we are at the mountain. This is the 51.2. Looking amazing. And the dynamic range on these is just great. We'll play around with some, that one and that one, balance it out. And bring this down. So we can really balance this image. When you look at the beginning image, comes out pretty good. And yeah, her walking away, tracks her body, no problem. Looking great. And let's see, find some more. Here's one where I just grabbed the frog and just sitting on the ground there. This is at 1.2. Wow. Yeah, 1.2. Pretty darn sharp. So just an amazing camera. All right, run through some of these. And just 35, I think. Yep, the frogs all in focus. Here's another one where we can kind of work the image, just show you some dynamic range. Like you can push these files pretty darn far before they start to fall apart. And I don't even know if I can make this one fall apart. Let's just max it out. Yeah, I mean, that, I won't say that looks natural, but you can push it pretty far. That little contrast, and yeah, that's pretty crazy what you can do. So yeah, that's it's 50 ISO, so that's probably gonna be best case scenario, but even going to high ISO, there's a lot you can do. Letting the frogs go. Awesome. Cool. So that's enough with that. And let's go up here to, this is an elopement I photographed just with two R6s, and we're at 1.2, plenty sharp. I just use eye autofocus here. Same thing here. Hold down that button. You can compose however you want and just let that camera do the work. here we are at 51.2 horizontal, just a beautiful image, and 51.2 flare. I love that flare. It's the best. And then here we are. This is the 28 to 70. Nice and sharp. Yeah, just beautiful. And then this was just a little cake cutting. I just love these colors here. The sun's down, 200 ISO. I mean, it's beautiful. And yep, beautiful color. Can't beat that. And then here are some like lower light, hard focusing images. So this confetti stuff was everywhere, and it grabbed their faces. I'm using a flash here. Anytime I'm using a flash, I use it at the minimum power, 1/28 power, I think. And then that allows me to just go nuts with it. It lasts all like 10 weddings probably. And so yeah, so that's what I did here. Had the flash kind of at a 45-degree angle with a little dome filter on it, or diffuser. And yeah, nailed it. And then here I pushed this one pretty hard, 800 ISO. I'm gonna reset this just so you can see where I pushed it to. So brought it up a good 3.24 stops with a little flash in there, and it holds up. I mean, that's definitely a usable, great image, deliverable. And then here we are with a 14 millimeter, just a late night, fire pit, all that. It just brought it all in. Looks great. And yeah, this sunset was beautiful. But yeah, this is a great image. So portraits, this thing nails it. It's got great dynamic range. I was able to bring the clouds back in here and bring them up. And just eye autofocus here. Catching moments is key at weddings. And so the speed that this camera turns on and the focus speed is just, you're basically unstoppable for capturing moments. Yep, just like that. Love it. Autofocus. You never know what's going to happen here. So holding down the autofocus button and waiting for a cake smash or not. And the dynamic range of this image is just wonderful. Bring these little rays back in. And I did a little gradient on the top and then just a little brushing down here just to kind of tie it all together. But yeah, just beautiful. Walking down the aisle here, 1.4. My second shooter. Yeah, he did a great job and just nailed it. And then just a couple portraits. The details, just great. It's beautiful. Yeah. This is at 2.8, 7200, and just, yeah, gorgeous. Awesome. And then, yeah, just a couple more. I won't bore you too much. Just don't want this video to be too long. But yeah, 51.2, 35, or no, 50 at 1.4. I must have just bumped it. And then here's a low light image. Again, that flash at a minimum power. And we're 1000 ISO. And another portrait. Samyang, 85 1.4. 1.4 is a little soft, but still plenty sharp. Looking great. Then up on a little mountain here. 28 to 70. Was getting attacked by bumblebees. Well, not attacked, but swarmed by bumblebees. That was wonderful. Out in Yosemite. And first kiss. And here is my buddy Michael's wedding at 500 ISO. And like no grain, like barely any. And then green back here, 500 ISO, super clean. And then this was 2000, just kind of hanging out the night before the wedding, drinking some expensive scotch. And wonderful image. And then out in Boise, plenty sharp, looking good. Yeah, camera neutral. And my brother out in Stanley, Idaho. Here's an example of these presets I'm working on. You can darken the background, gradient the subjects. And so I may do a video on how I did this, but basically this is a gradient on top of subject select. So the light falls from top to bottom, so it looks more natural. And then the background is just a background darkener, like 0.3, so it barely darkens the background. Oh yeah, this was cool. So these are hard to get. So 1.2, tracking them, nailed the ring. I mean, it's a big ring, so I guess can't miss that one. But well, yeah, but that flare, and then I also did one of these with the 105 millimeter, which was awesome. So And then same couple right here at 1.4. So cool. All right. Yeah. So examples of image quality, I think that it is top notch. You know, if you do have the need for a 45 megapixel camera or more, go get it. But if you don't, which I don't think most people do, unless you're shooting commercial, and if you have that need, you know it, landscapes, whatever you're doing, if you're selling big prints, then obviously go for the big one because it is almost double the resolution. But I think 24 is a great sweet spot. 30 would be awesome. 33, I think the Sony A7R4 or A7 IV was a good call because that's kind of hitting both sides of the spectrum there. But 24 is great. I think it's no problem for me. 20 was no problem. I delivered so many images, photographed so many weddings. And like I said, I have almost 4,000 clicks on those, two of those cameras combined, and delivered amazing images. And so I think staying consistent with your work is more important, you know, for me. So if I can photograph with the same camera, that makes my work flow much easier, and that makes my images more consistent. And editing is slightly faster with the 24 megapixels. I wouldn't say significantly, but mixing in the GFX, you know, can complicate things, but you know, I do appreciate those images. They're beautiful. So I make it work, and I'm able to edit pretty similarly. So for the screen recording, I use the Axion screen recorder. And then now I'm going to go into the most boring part of the video, which is just going to be the menu system and how I set this up. So you may just want to skip to that. Maybe I don't know how to put links in the description for jumping ahead to points, but if I figure that out, I'll do that for you. Or maybe I'll just upload that video separately. But from here on out, if you want to go watch that, see how I set this camera up, it might be helpful. I know that's helped me in the past with other videos when I've gotten a new camera just to get started, since there's so many custom settings in these things. But yeah, so for now, I'll catch you later, and you won't see my face again for the rest of this video. So have a good one. Okay, this is, in my opinion, probably the most boring video that I will ever make or have ever made. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to go as fast as I can. You can always slow me down in the settings. So I'm going to go quick. All right, raw JPEG. You can't get this setting, I don't think, until you change the record settings, but you might have to revisit this spot. So do pixel off, cropping full, and ISO speed settings, I set low to 12,800. Same with auto. I can't go down to low. So that, and then off, off, off. Off. A lot of these settings, I don't know what they do. I've used these cameras for years and still don't know. Anti-flicker on, just in case. You never know. You might have some issues. Speed light control and metering mode, just, you know, that one. And then white balance, I generally will default to 5800 unless I'm photographing in a lot of settings like weddings. I'll go to auto. And custom white balance. Nope. Mess with this. sRGB. Neutral. This is what I use, the profile I use in Lightroom under profiles, so I'll just set it to neutral. Clarity, don't use these. And yes, this is all fine. So these I'll turn on, you know, for the JPEG output. And then don't mess with these. Come here every once in a while, but generally I'll make double exposures in Photoshop. Just gives me more time. Take the photos and then make them in there. All right, and then drive mode, I have a button set to change that, so I don't mess with this in here. Don't mess with that. First curtain, when you have the anti-flicker on, it won't let you do electronic, but that's fine. I never use electronic sensor or shutter with these cameras. Turn this on because you never know. I've taken photos without a card. You don't want to do that. And stabilizer mode. Yeah, don't mess with this. I think I just have it on always. Should just be on. Okay. And custom quick controls. You can mess with this for the quick button. I disabled the JPEG quality, or the quality one, so I don't change my settings. Image review of off. That just gets annoying. Don't mess with this. Exposure simulation, if you want to go into you know, if you're shooting with flashes and you need to see your subject, then you'll use that. Shooting info display, don't really mess with that. Don't mess with this, just leave it on smooth. And I am not a video guy. I just set this to make quick videos, so If you're looking for video settings, don't come here. Go watch another video. Okay, I always leave this on servo. If you're going to just do portraits, you could do one shot. No one's moving. Area AF, I change this in another setting so I don't mess with it here. Whole area tracking, yeah. I don't know about that one. This one I just leave to none. Auto. And auto is fine for me. And don't mess with any of these. Touch and drag off. You can limit the AF. I think I turned this one off just because I never use it. If you're never using any of them, it'll make it a little quicker between changing settings. And yeah, I don't know if I mess with this one. I don't remember what this is. I have this all the way cranked up so that the selector point moves really fast. And yeah, you can turn off animal, car, whatever you want here. It's kind of nice. And touch. Okay, so next up, this here, turn on and low. That way, if I'm doing any, manual focusing, I'll have that. And then the focus guide is nice too. Okay. Don't mess with these. Don't mess with those. Okay, I don't mess with anything in here at all. Except this one. I like it jumping by tens when I use my index finger. Or you can jump by scene, which is kind of nice. So if you want to go here, that's kind of cool. Then, don't mess with that. Here, I only use this. Turn it on. Unless you're trying to do a file transfer, but this will save your battery a good 30 to 40% on a wedding day. And then here, we go to camera, record separately, and that'll allow you to write JPEG and RAW at the same time. Then your playback on one, you can have it default. If you press info to always go to card one. Okay. And just continuous, you can change the file name. If you have two of these, you can change, R6 to 1 or A or B. Format card. I never leave it on format card. So if I come here, format the card, and then I come back, I just always go to here just in case. If I ever come back and open menu, I don't defaultly accidentally press that. Set your date and time accordingly. I leave this on, so when you get on the computer, it auto rotates to what it thinks was correct. Language, depending on where you are. I speak English, read English, cool. Don't mess with these. Beep, turn it off. Power saving, I set to turn off pretty quickly. 15 seconds is good. That way, if I hit the shutter, it's back on. That way it saves my battery throughout the day. A lot better. Okay. Of course, you want to turn these off if you're doing video. It can get really annoying. So for photo, this is a good setting. Okay. These are auto. Screen brightness is at 4. I think that was default. Mess with those. I disable touch just so I don't accidentally do anything that I don't want to happen. Multifunction lock, don't mess with that, but you could. This does not lock. Again, the PSA dial. Yeah. So okay, shutter. I have it closed. You can have it open all the time. It does start up slightly faster, but really not that noticeable with this camera. Sensor cleaning. When I turn it off, it cleans the sensor. A little vibration in there. And don't mess with that. Let's see. Nothing in here. Nothing in here. Nothing in here. Yeah, I don't think. Nothing. Okay, here's the good stuff. Customized dials. This is, you can see how I have it set up. So, aperture, shutter, speed, aperture, ISO, and then this one here is aperture on the lens, and then I have to depress. The little arrow means depressing the shutter button will allow it to work, so we don't actually bump it, because the lens rings are a little different size, and so yeah, it's just not as intuitive because it does change. And here's the good one. All right, so we have this set to shutter and autofocus. This is set to drive mode, so I can change my drive mode. How many frames per second I want to photograph. This one's complicated. So you select it and then you press info, and this allows you to set different options. So I just have it set to autofocus, but you can add in other options like white balance, but it does get a little complicated. So just show you how that works. If I press that button, now I can select between focus areas, but if I had another one, it would go through different multiple white balance or whatever, so it get kind of complicated. So I simplify it by just having one option, and that's how I got there. I have this set to eye autofocus, and then these are both set to disable autofocus. That way I can do panoramics, and there's buttons are so close and they're not very tactile, so it just allows me to make sure and ensure that I don't refocus while making a panoramic. And then this is set to zoom, so if I'm manual focusing, I can zoom in. This is set to change the flash settings. It's a lot easier than going through your flash, just quicker to adjust the flash power. And then this, I think defaultly is off, so I turned that on, which makes sense, so you can move your focus point around. Don't have any lenses with a button, and I have never used this. I should probably try it sometime, but I'm not sure if it works with third-party lenses. So, cool. All right, so that's the good stuff. I think if there's anything else in here, I don't do any custom tabs. Yeah, so that's everything. Yeah, hopefully I covered everything that I've changed in here. I can't think of anything else that really stands out. So hopefully that's helpful.